sun rose over the small village of Ikede, casting a golden glow over the rooftops of the mud houses and the lush green fields that surrounded them. The air buzzed with excitement. Today, Prince Emeka, the heir to the royal throne, was coming to visit. He was on a journey to find his future queen, and every eligible maiden in the village had been preparing for weeks. Bright wrappers were carefully ironed, beads were polished to perfection, and hair was styled in intricate patterns. But not everyone in the village was preparing to meet the prince. In a small corner of the village, Amina sat quietly, grinding millet for her stepmother, Madame Ngozi. Amina had always been treated as less than a daughter, a burden instead of a blessing. While her stepsisters giggled and fussed over their appearances, Madame Ngozi had other plans for Amina. She saw her as nothing more than a servant to meet her every demand. "Amina!" Madame Ngozi's sharp voice echoed through the house. "Why are you sitting there? Take the water pot and go to the stream, I need fresh water for cooking." Amina's heart sank. She knew what this meant. The stream was far, and fetching water would keep her away for hours. "But stepmother," Amina began, her voice trembling. "The prince is coming today. Can't I?" "You dare talk back to me?" Madame Ngozi snapped, her face darkening. "You think someone like you deserves to see the prince? Look at yourself, no royal blood would glance at a girl like you." Crushing the urge to argue, Amina tied her scarf tightly around her head, picked up the heavy pot, and started the long walk to the stream. As she trudged along the dusty path, she heard the lively chatter of other girls heading to the village square, their laughter carrying on the breeze. Her heart ached with longing, but she pushed the thought away. Life had never been fair to her, and she had learned not to hope for things beyond her reach. At the village square, Prince Emeka arrived amidst a grand procession. Drummers beat their instruments, and villagers danced in colorful swirls of joy. The prince, dressed in regal attire of gold and deep green, dismounted his horse with a quiet grace. His sharp features and confident aura made many maidens' hearts race. But despite the spectacle, his expression remained unreadable. He wasn't here for flattery, he sought authenticity, something rare and precious. Meanwhile, at the stream, Amina was kneeling by the water, filling her pot. The cool breeze and gentle rippling of the stream offered her a rare moment of peace. She didn't hear the footsteps approaching until they were almost upon her. "Hello there," a deep, smooth voice said. Startled, Amina looked up, and her eyes widened. Standing before her was Prince Emeka himself. She recognized him immediately from the stories she had heard. But why was he here? And why was he speaking to her? And why was he speaking to her? "My prince," she stammered, quickly bowing her head. "Forgive me, I didn't." "No need to apologize," Emeka interrupted gently, a small smile playing on his lips. "I saw you from the path and thought I'd say hello. Why are you out here alone?" Amina hesitated. Should she tell him the truth? That her stepmother had sent her away to keep her from meeting him? I came to fetch water," she finally said. "It's my duty." The prince studied her for a moment. There was something about her, an honesty, a simplicity, that he hadn't seen in the other girls who had thrown themselves at him in other villages. "What is your name?" he asked. "Amina," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Amina," he repeated, as if testing the name on his tongue. "It suits you." Before Amina could respond, a loud commotion from the village square echoed through the air. Prince Emeka turned his head briefly but didn't seem in a hurry to leave. "Will you be at the square later?" he asked, his gaze returning to her. Amina's cheeks flushed. I don't think so, my prince." The village buzzed with stories of Prince Emeka's visit long after he had left the square. Women gossiped in the market, young men debated his character, and the maidens who had gathered to meet him recounted every glance and word with eager embellishment. But none of them knew about the prince's encounter at the stream. In the small compound where Amina lived, Madame Ngozi and her two daughters, Bola and Chinyer, were bursting with excitement. They had seen the prince up close and were convinced he had noticed them. "He looked right at me when he dismounted his horse," Bola bragged, twirling a strand of her beaded hair. "Nonsense," Chinyer interjected. "He smiled at me when I greeted him. You were standing too far back for him to notice you." Amina listened quietly from the corner, where she was grinding pepper. Her stepmother had given her a mountain of chores to complete as usual. She tried to focus on her work, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the prince. His kind eyes, his gentle smile, the way he had said her name, it all felt like a dream. Madame Ngozi's sharp voice broke her reverie. "Amina, stop daydreaming and finish your work. We need to prepare for tomorrow. The prince may visit again." "Yes, stepmother," Amina replied, lowering her head to hide her emotions. Meanwhile at the palace, Prince Emeka was deep in thought. His advisors and attendants surrounded him, discussing the day's events and the women he had met. But Emeka barely listened. His mind kept returning to the girl at the stream. There had been something genuine about her, something that stood out from the polished smiles and practiced curtsies of the other maidens. "Your Highness," his chief advisor said, breaking through his thoughts. "Have you made any decisions about the women you met today?" Emeka shook his head. "Not yet. I need more time." The advisor nodded, though he seemed slightly frustrated. "Very well, Your Highness. We will continue to visit other villages as planned." The prince nodded absent-mindedly, but his heart wasn't in it. He resolved to return to Ikede before leaving for the next village. He wanted to see Amina again, to learn more about her. Amina was at the market, helping her stepmother sell vegetables. She worked diligently, arranging the produce and attending to customers. But the whispers and stares of the villagers made her uncomfortable. She caught snippets of conversations as she moved through the crowded stalls. "Did you hear? The prince was seen near the stream yesterday. Who was he talking to? No one seems to know. It couldn't have been anyone important. Probably just a servant fetching water." Amina's cheeks burned, and she kept her head down, hoping no one would connect her to the story. But deep down, a small part of her felt a flicker of hope. Maybe the prince would come back. Maybe he would remember her. By the time the sun began to set, Amina was exhausted. She returned home with Madame Dozie and her stepsisters, carrying the unsold vegetables on her head. As she approached the compound, she heard a commotion. Villagers were gathering outside their gate, murmuring excitedly. "What is going on?" Madame Dozie demanded, pushing through the crowd. Standing in the center of the crowd was Prince Emeka, his regal presence unmistakable. He turned toward Madame Dozie and spoke with authority. "I have come to speak with Amina." Gasps erupted from the onlookers. Amina's heart stopped. Her stepmother's face twisted with shock and barely concealed anger. Bola and Chinyer exchanged looks of disbelief. "Amina?" Madame Dozie repeated, her voice rising. What could the prince possibly want with her? Emeka's gaze was steady. "I would like to speak with her. Alone." The crowd fell silent, waiting to see what would happen next. Amina stepped forward hesitantly, her heart pounding in her chest. The villagers' eyes burned into her, some curious, others filled with disbelief. Madame Ngozi's face flushed with anger as she moved to block Amina's path. "Your Highness," Madame Ngozi began, forcing a smile. "I'm afraid Amina is quite busy with her chores. Surely you'd prefer to speak to one of my other daughters, Bola or Chinyere." Emeka's expression didn't waver. "Thank you, Madame Ngozi, but I wish to speak to Amina," Madame Ngozi hesitated, her smile faltering. She turned to Amina, her eyes flashing with warning. "Go inside, Amina. Now." But before Amina could retreat, the prince spoke again, his voice firm yet kind. "Amina, will you step out and speak with me?" The villagers gasped in unison. This was no simple request. It was a direct order. Amina looked at her stepmother, then at the prince. She knew there would be consequences for disobeying Madame Ngozi, but the look in Prince Emeka's eyes gave her courage. "Yes, my prince," she said softly, stepping forward. The crowd parted to let her through. Madame Ngozi glared at her, but Amina kept her gaze on the ground as she walked toward the prince. When she stood before him, he gestured for her to follow him to a quieter corner of the compound. "I'm sorry for the scene," Emeka said once they were alone. "I didn't mean to cause you any trouble." Amina shook her head. "It's not your fault, my prince. I'm just surprised you would want to speak to me." Emeka smiled. "Why wouldn't I? You seem kind, hard-working, and genuine."